What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So look, one of the most frequent questions I get from you guys is how do I get my beats to sound better? So I want to go over like my thought process and how I EQ my sounds and why I make those certain EQ moves to certain sounds or whatever. And I'm using all stock plugins. I'm in Pro Tools. I know people say you need all these plugins to get a great sounding mix, but I guarantee it, you don't. All you need is the know-how. And it doesn't matter if you're on Pro Tools, Fruity Loops, Ableton, Logic, or whatever DAW you're using. If you got an EQ plugin, if you got a delay plugin, if you got a distortion plugin, you can apply these things. This is really simple stuff, and I'm telling you, it makes a world of difference when it comes to, making your beat gel together and making it all sound cohesive. So what I want to do is I want to play the beat for you guys, and this particular beat, it only has like 6 or 7 sounds, and it doesn't matter if you have 6 sounds or 30 sounds. You can still apply this to different things in the mix to make them sound more cohesive. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play the beat for you guys, and then I'll go over everything that I'm doing. Pretty simple. Like I said, it's only like 6 elements in this beat, so I'm gonna try to go through them really quick, but try to break everything down so you guys can really grasp it. So let's start with the 808. The only thing I'm doing to the 808 is I actually have this stock plugin from Pro Tools. It's called Air Distortion, the mode I'm using is rap. I'm driving it a little bit, and I got the mix percent on 52%. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bypass it, and then I'll play it with it so you can hear what it's doing. So if you notice, it made it a little bit louder, of course, but it added just a little bit more grit to the 808 to make it punch a little bit harder. And this is one of my favorite plugins. I've done a video on this plugin, or I think the name of the video is how to make your drums knock harder or whatever. But this particular plugin I use a lot on drums. I use it on everything, to be honest with you, from vocals to drums to synths to whatever. So definitely check this out. And if you got an 808, like I said, doesn't matter what DAW you're in. If you got a distortion plugin, try some distortion on the 808 just to make it knock a little bit harder. Let's go to the snare. So the snare, only thing I'm doing is I have EQ, stock Pro Tools EQ. For the record, every EQ move that I'm making, especially like on the 808 heavy beats that I do, dare to make that 808 shine, because at 808, your boom got to cut through. Your boom got to cut through. Like if your boom don't cut through, what is your beat? You understand what I'm saying? You got to let your boom cut through. So I'm doing a lot of high pass filtering on beats like this. So first thing I got is I got high pass filter. I got it set to this is set to 63 hertz, and I'm actually adding a little air on the top just to make the snare cut through a little bit. So I'm gonna bypass it, and then I'm gonna play it with it so you can hear what it's doing. And I'm playing these sounds in solo, but for the most part, I am EQing these sounds with the beat, with everything while it's playing. But just for the sake of this video and so you guys can hear what it's actually doing, I'm gonna solo the sound so you can hear them. So it's really subtle what it's doing, but I'm telling you, when everything is played together, it makes a world of a difference. So try that out. Like I said, all I'm doing is doing some high pass filtering, and I'm adding a little air on the top end of the snare to make the snare cut through and bring it forward a little bit in the mix. Let's go to the hi-hat. So hi-hat, let's pull this up. As you see the hi-hat, what I'm doing is I'm actually high pass filtering, and if you look, I'm high pass filtering all the way to 1,000 kilohertz, and I actually have a low pass filter on as well, and that's at 12,000 kilohertz. I'm making these EQ moves based around the 808, and I'm high pass filtering just to get it out of the way, because you don't even, whatever's in that bottom end of this hi-hat, I don't need. It serves absolutely no purpose for this particular beat. In the low pass filter, what I'm doing is I'm cutting a little bit of the top just to make it sit back in the mix. Anytime I'm doing any low pass filtering, I'm trying to make that sound sit back in the mix a little bit to play nice with everything else. So that's what I'm doing to the hi-hat. Let's play a couple bars, bypass, and then I'll bring it in so you can hear what it's doing. I think a lot of people forget that a song as a whole, it needs to gel. Like, yeah, that particular sound may sound good by itself, but when everything is playing together, it has to fit together. And I feel like a lot of people forget that sometimes, and they don't go in and they're not tweaking their sounds with the intent of it being all together. It's like one big happy family. The only way we can make this family work is we got to trim some of this fat. So that's the hi-hat. This next sound is a sound that's from Arturia. It's called Grassy Glass, but I'm gonna solo this and then we'll go over the processing that I'm doing. All right, first thing I'm doing is I have this stock delay plugin, and I've talked about this in another video, just talking about stereo width. What I do is I delay one side and then I low pass filter the undelayed side just to enhance it and just to spread it out a little bit. I hear it so much on beats that I mix, in a lot of songs that I hear from, you know, other artists or people that they're not taking their time to make those sounds stereo or to spread them out. You have to do some stereo enhancement if you want your beats to compete with the stuff that's out there that you're hearing. You know, if you ever hear a song and you're like, man, that shit just sounds so wide and so crazy, they're doing some stereo enhancement to make it wider and to do those things. A lot of times, you know, a lot of producers, they're not taking the time out to enhance it, but this is one of the easiest ways that I found for me to make a sound stereo. I just delay one side and then use a low pass filter on the other side. It's super simple, super easy, but you guys can try that. I just delayed the right side by 20 milliseconds. And same thing here with the EQ, with the other EQs. I'm doing a high pass filter and I got a low pass filter on as well. I got the high pass filter on this up to 296 hertz. The low pass filter is like around 9,000, 10,000 kilohertz. I'm gonna bypass the EQ and play it so you can hear what the EQ is doing. All right, now I'm gonna pull it back in. I'm not sure how you guys are listening to this, but if you hear it, it just made the sound to me more smoother, and it made it sit in the speakers a little bit. I like to call this EQ curve like the sit in the speakers EQ curve, because to me this EQ curve, you know, it moves the sound back, especially like when you're doing like a low pass filter on a sound, it moves the sound back, but it makes it all fit together so much better. I'm telling you guys. And you have to play like with the low pass filter points and the high pass filter points just to figure out what sounds best for that particular sound. For this particular sound, I stopped at 296 because that's where it felt like it wasn't taking too much bottom end off of it, and it still fit together with the 808. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna solo this in the 808, and then we'll play with the frequency so I can show you guys what I mean. So I actually could have went up to like 329. That didn't sound too bad. But for the most part, it didn't really change. It doesn't change the tone of the sound or nothing like that. All it did, especially when it comes to like the processing that I'm doing like on my master, it just gives me more headroom, because whatever is in that bottom, in those bottom frequencies, it doesn't even need to be there. It's not even serving a purpose. And it's going to allow me to, you know, make my mix a whole lot louder. So let's go to the next sound. This next sound is a sound from Omnisphere. Let's see what it's called. Granular tremolo guitar. So same thing I did on the last sound, I'm pretty much doing on this sound. I'm delaying the right side by 3 milliseconds. And for the EQ, I'm doing the same thing that I've done pretty much for the rest of the sounds in the mix. I'm high pass filtering and I'm low pass filtering. I went up to 292 on this one. I went all the way down to almost 5,000 kilohertz on this particular sound with the low pass filter. And like I said, it all depends on the sound. Like where you filter it definitely depends on the sound. Like I'll play this sound for you. And just like with the other sounds, it doesn't really change the tone of the sound at all. It just makes everything fit together. And like I said, we're using a high pass filter to move stuff out of the way of the 808, using a low pass filter to make a sound just fit together more in the mix. And then this last sound we have is a low bass. This is from Expand. This is a sound called Funky Film and Bass. I'm gonna play it for you. It sounds like this. All right, and now I'm gonna bypass the EQ so you can hear what it sounds like. As you can see, I cut like all of the top end off of this particular sound. I wanted this sound to kind of hold the beat down and the sound big and full. So I'm using a low pass filter all the way down to 1000 kilohertz. And I'm actually boosting some bottom end just to make it sound full. This particular sound I feel like needed this EQ curve just to sit in the beat and hold everything down. But let's listen to the beat as a whole one more time. I know EQing and just making your beat sound good can be tricky, and it can be daunting sometimes, especially when you don't really know where to start. But just try some of these things. I'm telling you, try some of these EQ curves and EQ moves, and I promise you your mixes will sound so much better. You know, and with the high pass filter, you gotta be careful with that because you don't want to make your mixes sound too thin. But I'm telling you, if you combine the high pass filter with a low pass filter, it definitely makes a world of a difference when it comes to just making your mixes gel together and mix, you know, be more cohesive. So look, I hope this was helpful to some of you guys. If it was, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Arrivederci.